You've heard it a million times, right? The NHS is in crisis. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if this isn't just a collection of really bad problems, but actually one single massive project failure? Today, we're going to break down why thinking about it that way changes absolutely everything. So let's start right here. This question, it's really the key to our whole analysis today. Are we dealing with a series of unfortunate, separate issues? Or is the NHS failing to deliver on a very specific, clearly defined promise? Because how you answer that question completely changes what you should do next.
All right, so here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the plan and the tools that were supposed to get the job done. Then we'll check in on the reality of what's being delivered. After that, we'll diagnose the real failure, reframe this as a project in crisis, and finally, talk about the huge risk of what some are proposing to do next. Okay, first things first, the blueprint and the tools. Think about it. Any big project, whether you're building a skyscraper or running a national health service, needs two fundamental things: a really clear plan of what you're making and the right equipment to actually make it.
And this right here, this is the blueprint. Now let's be really clear, the NHS Constitution isn't some fluffy mission statement gathering dust on a shelf. It has real legal power. In the world of project management, this is what you'd call the product spec. It's the binding, legal document that says exactly what the NHS must deliver: care that is safe, high quality, and available to everyone.
And this is where it gets so interesting. Parliament didn't just write down the blueprint and hope for the best. They followed it up by providing the tools. The 2022 Health and Care Act gave the government and NHS England the actual legal power to step in, to direct, and, this is the key word, to enforce that standard. The plan was clear, and the tools to make it happen were put in place.
Okay, so we've got the plan and we've got the tools. The next logical step, right, is to ask the big question. Is the product that's being delivered today the same one that's described in the blueprint?
Well, let's look at the evidence. We can start with just one number, 7.6 million. Just let that sink in for a second. That is not just a statistic, is it? It's a massive, glaring gap between the promise of a service available to all and the reality people are facing every day. And this gap isn't just about waiting times. Look at this. The suicide rate is the highest it's been in more than 20 years. Now, this isn't just a tragic social trend. It's a direct signal that the system is struggling to deliver that effective, high-quality care that's guaranteed in its own constitution.
And when you zoom out, you see a clear pattern. These aren't just one-off problems. We're talking about a systemic breakdown. Clinical pathways are broken, patient safety is a persistent issue, the people working in the NHS are under impossible pressure, and the gap between the rich and poor is getting wider. The product being delivered looks very, very different from the one on the blueprint.
So, this brings us to the most critical part of this whole thing. What's the diagnosis? What is the root cause of this massive gap between the plan and the reality? This is where we have to be really precise. You've really got two possible explanations. Is this a capability gap, meaning we just don't have the right laws or tools to fix the problem? Or is it an execution failure, meaning the tools and the powers are right there, but they're just not being used? The argument here is that since that 2022 Act, this is without a doubt an execution failure. Let's just spell this out, plain and simple. The blueprint is in the Constitution. The tools to enforce it are in the 2022 Act. So the problem isn't a flaw in the project's design. The failure is in the follow-through, the implementation. It's a failure to use the very powers that were created for this exact purpose. So what does this all mean? It means we need to totally reframe how we talk about this crisis. Using the clear, objective language of project management, what we're looking at is a project in crisis, experiencing what's called a critical product deviation. Just take a look at this comparison. It lays it all out. On one side, you have the promise: safe care, clear accountability, universal access. On the other side, you have the reality: patient harm, confusing accountability, and a postcode lottery. In project management, this is a red alert. It's a critical product deviation. A failure so big, it means you have to stop everything and fix the core problem immediately. Which leads us to the final, and honestly, the most important point of this whole discussion. If you have a project that is failing this critically, what's the absolute worst thing you could do? Well, that would be to propose even more reform. You know, if you talk to anyone who manages big projects for a living, they'll tell you that when things are going this wrong, the last thing you ever do is start adding new features or changing the whole structure. It's called scope creep, and it's a classic mistake.
Suggesting big new reforms right now is like noticing your car has a flat tire and deciding the solution is to add a new spoiler. It completely misses the point.
And this isn't just about project management theory. It gets to the heart of how the system should be governed. This quote, which was submitted to Parliament, just nails it. You can't give parts of the system autonomy without also having enforceable accountability. Otherwise, it's not real independence. It's just a massive risk. Accountability is the whole point. So it all boils down to this one simple, powerful question. If the core project is failing, if the very foundation of execution and accountability is cracked, why on earth would you try to build a whole new floor on top of it? The message is crystal clear. Before anyone talks about more reform, the fundamental project failure has to be fixed. The tools that are already there must be used to deliver the product that was promised. Anything else is just building on a cracked foundation.